My name's Iqbal. I'm the managing director of eToro. Been in cryptocurrencies for several years. I wish I could say I purchased at 2010, but I didn't. Started buying cryptocurrencies in 2013, 2014. So before I start the presentation and discuss the future of cryptocurrencies, a quick question. Hands up, how many people in this room own cryptocurrencies? Right, keep your hands up if you bought them in 2017. Now keep your hands up if you've managed to buy yourself a Lamborghini. No one? So I've asked the same question in several different countries, and I'm yet to find a customer who's actually managed to buy a Lamborghini with the money they've made from cryptocurrencies. So something about eToro. We've been around for almost a decade, since 2007. We operate in 140 countries with offices in 8 countries. We have over 500 employees, and in 2014 we added Bitcoin to our platform. Today you can buy 9 different cryptocurrencies. We're one of the largest retailers of cryptocurrencies in Europe, and we're in the top 3 or 4 globally. How can you use eToro? We have 3 simple ways of using eToro. Don't worry, the rest of this presentation is not about eToro. It's only 2 slides. The first way is that you can come onto our platform and just buy Bitcoin. Pretty simple. The second is if you want to benefit from the volatility of the price. So Bitcoin rising 10%, falling 10%, but like me, you don't know anything about trading or you don't have the time, you can simply copy what we call popular investors. So you go onto our platform, you find somebody who's really, really good at trading Bitcoin, you look at their results, and you click copy. So every time they buy, you buy. Every time they sell, you sell at the same price and at the same time. So you don't have to do anything. It's like bot-based trading, but with a human. The third method is a portfolio. If you do not know what you want to buy, which cryptos, or you want to diversify, you can invest in a crypto copy fund, which carries the 6 of the top cryptocurrencies today. So in summary, you can use our platform in 3 different ways, and I believe we're the only platform which allows you to do this. You can buy cryptocurrencies directly, you can copy other people, so you don't have to trade yourself, or you can invest in a portfolio. And just to clarify, when you buy cryptocurrencies on our platform, they're not derivatives, they're not CFDs, you actually own the cryptocurrency. So, to answer the question of this presentation, what's the future of investing in cryptocurrencies? I think we have to look at the ecosystem and ask ourselves the question, are we in a bubble? So in January, everybody keeps saying that we are in a bubble. This bubble is going to collapse, the price is too high, nobody's using cryptocurrencies, etc., etc. There's no development in the technology. So to answer the question, is it a good investment? We have to ask the question, what does the ecosystem look like? For me, there are 4 aspects to the crypto ecosystem. There's the technology, there are the investors, who are they, what do they look like? The regulators, what is regulation, what does it look like globally in cryptocurrencies? And the 4th, can we actually use cryptocurrencies? So the technology. So I apologize if there's any developers or techies in the audience, because the analogy that I'm going to use to explain blockchain is not 100% correct, but it's very difficult to explain a difficult concept in a really simple manner. So for me, the blockchain is really simple. It's a store of data. It's a store of information. What makes it unique is that you can't edit the data, i.e. it's immutable. It also allows you to automatically validate any data that you're entering into the system, so you don't need humans to check it, hence you have a consensus model, and it's also decentralized. The problem with these 3 aspects of the blockchain is that they all lead to issues with scalability. I'm sure in 2017 we heard the rumors about Bitcoin Cash, it can't scale, it would scale, how to scale it, blockchain's no good because we can't use it globally because it doesn't scale. So what makes the blockchain is exactly what causes its problems of scalability. So the way to solve this is by evolution. So this is a list of the top 6 or 7 blockchains. you can see how they've evolved since 2009, 2010. So if you have a look at Bitcoin, it's generation 1 in terms of blockchain. So they had a single chain, or have a single chain. They have a consensus model, which is proof of work. In its simplistic terms, the proof of work means that if you have to expend a certain amount of energy, which costs you, you are less likely to lie when you're entering the data into the blockchain. Ethereum then came along. I find these mics very difficult because I like to walk around on the stage and I'm stuck to this mic. So Ethereum came along and said, well, the blockchain's great, but what if we could program on the blockchain, if we could add smart logic? So they built the Ethereum blockchain. Then they started thinking that proof of work is not really scalable. We all know about the issues with mining and electricity costs, et cetera, et cetera. So then they said, why don't we do something like proof of stake? So instead of mining, let's just give voting rights, or let's validate the data being entered into the blockchain using votes. So if you own more tokens, you have more voting rights. If you own less tokens, you have less voting rights. It's like majority shareholders and minority shareholders. The issue with that model is if you've bought tokens very early on, or you're very rich, you have more voting rights. If you're poor, you have less voting rights. So then BitShares developed something known as DPoS, which was delegated proof of stake. So they said, let's take all the people who have a small amount of tokens and get them to pool their tokens together and delegate the voting rights to somebody. They also started to increase the number of chains. So whereby Bitcoin had one central chain, like a tree trunk, these people started to have side chains. EOS then came along and said, right, we need to have smart contracts on the blockchain. And then we have Polkadot, which is an interchain, and then we have the Open Network, or Telegram's Open Network, where they have a main chain, they have a side chain, they have side chains off the side chains, and the blocks within the side chains are also chains. So there's a lot of chains. They also developed the proof of stake model and asked themselves the question that if you're delegating the voting rights to somebody, how do you know you can trust that person? So they added a layer of BFT, or Byzantine fault tolerance. But the key takeaway here is that the blockchain is evolving. So all these issues that we're seeing with scalability or programming logic and problems which the media report about when it comes to the blockchain, all these problems are being solved. Another way to look at blockchains is to ask yourself, are they public or private? Are they permissionless or are they permissioned? So in the top half of this diagram, we're talking about, sorry, I need to turn my head, and we're talking about permissionless blockchains. In the bottom half, it's permissioned blockchains. Left of the screen is, the top half is permissionless, public, and the bottom half is private blockchains. The left hand of the diagram is permissionless, and the right is permissioned. So if we have a look in the top left-hand corner, that's Bitcoin. That's a public blockchain which requires no permissions for people to validate and enter the data. In the top right hand, that would be Ethereum plus Casper. So that's a public blockchain, but it needs permission, i.e. you need voting rights to enter the data. In the bottom left, this will be a private blockchain. This will be a blockchain, it could be something similar to Ripple, which is owned by a number of banks, or a number of banks use it, but it also has a permissionless state. And in the bottom right-hand corner is the most restrictive blockchain, which is permissioned and private. Again, probably used by a consortium of banks, and they have a federated model whereby 10 or 12 of the banks can edit the data and view the data. So when investing in the blockchain, the two questions to ask yourself is, what problem are they actually solving in the blockchain when it comes to scalability? And are they a public blockchain or are they a private blockchain? Do you want to invest in a technology which everybody's going to use, or just a few companies or industries like the banking industry or the shipping industry will be using? So the second part of the ecosystem is the investor. Who are they? So we did a survey with 2,000 people globally, and most people understood what a currency exchange was, and they also understood what Bitcoin was. The majority of people either wanted regulation or they were unsure. But here's the key takeaway is at the bottom left. Of the people who knew about Bitcoin, only 6% had actually invested. So when the media ask, are we in a bubble? I say it's nigh on impossible that we're in a bubble. Only 6% of the people who knew about Bitcoin had actually invested in Bitcoin. Sure, my hairdresser talks about Bitcoin. My local shopkeeper talks about Bitcoin, but they haven't invested in Bitcoin. So what do the investors look like? In Q1 of 2017, the investor was primarily somebody who was working in the blockchain industry, who understood cryptocurrency. In Q2, they were technical people. So these were the software developers, they were the database engineers, they were the system engineers, but not people who were working in cryptocurrencies. In Q3, they were individuals who were very familiar with fintech applications. So they probably had a digital banking application on their phone. They probably applied for mortgages on their mobile phone. In Q4, and this is the interesting one, it's everyone. So it's the only industry I've seen outside the internet which has spanned the complete spectrum of individuals. They started off with techies, and they went to a mass market adoption in 12 months. I haven't seen a single industry do that in the past 25 years. So what are they buying? In Q2 of last year, people were searching for BTC USDX. So they knew what they wanted to buy. They were looking for Bitcoin USD pairs on an exchange. In Q4, they just wanted to make money. So there's like, where do I buy Bitcoin? How do I get rich? Interesting thing about people from Poland versus a global audience, they buy roughly the same things except for Ripple. In Poland, 18% of people bought Ripple, or should I say XRP? I'm not allowed to call it Ripple. Whereas globally, 24% of people bought XRP. Not exactly sure why. I'm not sure if in Poland individuals are risk averse, or Ripple hasn't partnered with any Polish banks, so they're not interested in investing in XRP. But an interesting takeaway. But the key takeaway being that people in Poland aren't too different from the people in the rest of the world when it comes to investing in cryptocurrencies. So the regulator. This is another interesting question. I apologize if this slide is out of date. It moves very, very quickly. So China, I think China decides its regulation based on the weather. Some days it wakes up and says we're banning cryptos. Other days it's saying they're legal. Then they say we're going to ban miners. Then we're not going to ban miners. And I think the last aspect today is that they want miners to make an orderly exit out of China. The US, pretty simple. If it smells like a security, if it tastes like a security, if it looks like a security, it's a security. South Korea, again, South Korea, I think, get up in the morning and decide that we want to ban it today, and we don't want to ban it. So they've gone from it's legal to illegal to legal to banning it, and now they're saying if we carry out anti-money laundering checks and know your customer AML and KYC checks, you can buy cryptocurrencies. I think in Poland, the government are looking at taxing all crypto transactions, which is different to Germany, where they will not tax any purchases made using cryptocurrencies. France is creating a working group. Italy is issuing a decree. I still have no idea what that means. And Russia, who knows? Again, they change. Right now, I believe Russia is saying, let's not ban them, but let's try to regulate them. The issue for all of these countries is how to de-risk their own currency. So China's biggest problem is, how do we ensure that the RMB doesn't get damaged by cryptocurrencies? How do we stop the Chinese currency leaving the country? And it's the same true for countries such as India. They're trying to protect their own currency. UK has a wait and watch approach. I'm the chair of the UK's Crypto Association. So we've been meeting with the regulators and the FCA, the Bank of England and the Treasury, and they have a really interesting wait and watch approach. They're trying to understand the industry before they actually come out with any regulations. So the question is, why do we need regulation? I think we need regulation because of the media. So we keep hearing the same story, and I'm getting really bored of the story. In short, they say that everybody who's buying cryptocurrencies is either sponsoring terrorism, laundering money, or buying drugs, which means that everybody who put their hands up when I asked the question is doing one of these three things. Now, I don't think this room is full of drug dealers or people who support terrorism or laundering money. But unfortunately, the media keep saying that's what we're doing when we're buying cryptocurrencies. So for me, it's actually important that we do get regulated, because the moment we get regulated, that conversation has to stop, and we can move the conversation forward. And for regulation, all I say what we need is to regulate the on-ramp and the off-ramp, so the parts where people are buying cryptocurrencies and selling cryptocurrencies. Sure, if people want to remain anonymous, they'll buy a privacy coin. So there's always ways of remaining anonymous, but the majority of people, they don't mind being regulated. So some of the regulation resources, the Japanese Blockchain Association, Crypto UK, which I've actually mentioned, Crypto Valley out in Switzerland, the Polish Bitcoin Association, the German Blockchain Bundesverband, Australia Association, there's a Global Blockchain Forum, and some of the regulators, the FCA, the SEC, and also the Bank of England. The key takeaway being that the regulation is going to come, but the majority of investors don't care about regulation. They will still continue to invest. So the consumer, 2 slides left. So what are we using this for? Not much. So you can have plugins into your Shopify store or into your e-commerce store to accept cryptos, but let's be honest, who's going to spend Bitcoin today? I mean, if you'd spent it 2 days ago, you would have lost out 10% because it's risen 10 or 12% in a day. Nobody's going to spend cryptocurrencies today. You can buy a house, you can buy a car, you can pay for advertising, you can pay consultants in cryptocurrencies. But again, the media have this thing that nobody's using cryptocurrencies, hence it's not going to work. Nobody had email in 1994 either. You know, when I had an email address, my friends used to say, "What are you doing with email?" I bought myself a webcam. Nobody had a webcam until it was bedded into a laptop. How many places in Poland can you use Amex or American Express? I can't. 5 years ago, I couldn't use my credit card in my local store, but that doesn't mean Visa and MasterCard haven't been successful. PayPal took several years before it had mass adoption. So when I keep reading the stories of there's no consumer adoption, there's no place to use it, there's no use case, there's no this, no that, I usually switch off. Everything takes time to evolve. Technologies take time to evolve. So the moment somebody starts talking about use cases, I say, look, I have no idea where this is going to be used, but I do know it is going to be used. Last slide. So I started off this presentation talking about investing in cryptocurrencies. And in order to address that question, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, unfortunately, I can't give financial advice. I'm regulated in the UK. We had to look at the ecosystem. So the crypto ecosystem, the technology started in 2009, or even earlier in some cases. And then in early 2017, investors started to get interested. Ethereum started to move in March when Samsung joined the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. The regulators started to take notice in the summer of 2017. And now consumers are starting to take notice, and they're starting to use it, but only in small cases. So the ecosystem is being developed. And my thing with bubbles is that we can't be in a bubble because bubbles don't like ecosystems. And if we're building an ecosystem and we're not in a bubble, then I would say cryptocurrencies are here to stay, and it's a really good investment. Just to one last note on the investment and why cryptocurrencies are a good investment. Does anyone here know, I started this presentation with a question, so I'm going to end it with a question. Does anybody here know what's the single most, or one of the most important inventions in the history of mankind? Anybody? Take a guess? Okay, fire. I'm going to say it's accounting. There isn't a single thing that you can eat, sleep, watch, touch, smell from the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you go to sleep, which hasn't had a record of accounting made somewhere. Think about it. The clothes that you wear, the coffee that you drank, the chair that you're sitting on, this very conference that you attended, the headphones that you're wearing. They've all been recorded somewhere. First stage of accounting was single entry accounting. I needed to meet you, I purchased something from you, and I wrote it in my ledger. Double entry accounting allowed us to do business further afield. So we didn't necessarily need to meet, but I needed to know who you were. You made a record in your ledger, I made a record in my ledger. Imagine the blockchain, triple entry accounting. I don't even need to know who you are to do business with you. We never need to meet. The blockchain carries out the third part of the accounting. Imagine what that will do to business. 25 years ago, the internet developed communications. People think it was e-commerce, it was communications. Without email, you couldn't have had Amazon. That was layer one. Layer 2 and layer 3 is the blockchain and cryptocurrencies. If the blockchain can allow triple entry accounting, imagine what that will do to business. Cryptocurrencies, cross-border payments. Combine those three layers and imagine what that will do to business and an economy. This is why I believe investing in cryptocurrencies and blockchain is really, really good. The only question you have to ask yourself is, am I investing in a fabric blockchain, like an EOS, a Stellar, IOTA, etc., or am I investing in an application which is using the blockchain? If it's an application, just ask yourself, does it need the blockchain or not? When you're walking around some of the ICOs outside, that's the only question you have to ask yourself. Does it really need the blockchain? If it doesn't, don't invest. If it does, it's worth a punt. Thank you.